The ink was barely dry on the divorce papers, and she laughed like she had one, like I was the fool. Her laughter echoed through the quiet room, piercing the air with a smugness I hadn't seen in her before. She slid the final page across the table, the sound of it a sharp reminder that this moment was over. Her scarlet lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes that were carefully avoiding mine, as if she couldn't bear to acknowledge the truth of what was really happening. I kept my gaze fixed on the judge, my expression unreadable, calm, controlled. The tightness in my chest didn't show on my face, nor did the betrayal that had festered for months. This wasn't the end for me, it was just the beginning. While she sat there, reveling in the illusion that she had won, I knew better. This wasn't about who could laugh the loudest. It was about who would have the last laugh. And it wouldn't be her. I nodded to the judge, my voice steady when it was my turn to speak. She didn't know it yet, but the real moment wasn't the signing of these papers. It was the reading that was to come. The truth would be read aloud, and her world, her carefully crafted world, would begin to crumble. I couldn't wait to hear the sound of her silence. Stay tuned. Because the real game? That's just beginning. I met her at an art gallery opening, the kind of event where everyone pretends to understand the art just to fit in. But there she was, standing out in a sea of black suits and casual smiles, sipping red wine barefoot in a sundress that cost more than my rent. She didn't care for the pretentious atmosphere around her. She was different, refreshing, free-spirited, and unapologetically herself. Her laughter was infectious, and in that moment, I was captivated. It felt like the start of something beautiful, something that would last forever. She was the one I'd been waiting for, and I believed she felt the same. We built a life together, or at least I thought we did. I worked tirelessly, putting in long nights and sacrificing everything for my company. Every day was a race to stay ahead, and every night I worked late, thinking about the future we'd create. She was always there, supportive, telling me she understood. "You're doing this for us," she'd say, her words like a balm to my weary soul. She reassured me that we were building something together, that we were in this for the long haul. But slowly, things began to change, and I started noticing the small cracks I'd been too blind to see. It wasn't anything drastic at first, just little things that didn't sit right. It started with her phone lighting up at 11:23 p.m. every night. A name I didn't recognize. She'd brush it off, tell me it was a work friend. I wasn't the jealous type, so I didn't ask more questions. I told myself I was being paranoid. But then the weekends in Dubai started. She called them girls' weekends, something about needing time with friends. I tried to tell myself that she deserved it, that I couldn't expect her to always be around when I was working so much. But deep down, a gnawing feeling started to grow. I could smell a change in her perfume, a new scent I didn't recognize. And her eyes, those eyes that once looked at me with such warmth, began to shift, as if she was no longer really here, as if her mind and heart had already wandered elsewhere. I wanted to confront her. I wanted to scream, to ask her what was happening, but instead, I kept quiet, hoping things would go back to the way they were. I held on to the love I thought we still shared, but with each passing day, it felt more like I was holding on to a dream that was slipping further and further away. The realization hit slowly, but when it did, it was like a blow to the chest. I wasn't just losing her, I was losing myself. The love I thought was solid had started to crumble, and I was left standing in the rubble, wondering where it all went wrong. But I wasn't ready to give up yet. I had to know the truth, even if it broke me. The truth was the only thing left worth fighting for. I knew I couldn't confront her directly. If I did, it would only give her a chance to lie her way out of it, to twist the narrative into something that would make me look like the fool. No, I had to be smarter than that. I had to play the long game. I started building my case, quietly, meticulously. I moved our money. Money that she thought was ours, into hidden accounts, creating shell companies that she couldn't trace. I hired a forensic accountant to scrub the records clean, ensuring there was no way she could find any evidence of what I was doing. Every transaction was planned, every move calculated. I wasn't just protecting myself, I was preparing for the battle that I knew was coming. I knew I needed proof, something undeniable that would stand up in court. That's when I brought in the private investigator. I didn't trust anyone else with this, not even the lawyer. I needed someone who could get the truth without raising suspicion. For 3 weeks, the PI followed her every move. I wasn't worried, she thought she was untouchable, but I was building my case, step by step, piece by piece. The results came in quietly, like the ticking of a clock that was counting down to the inevitable. The PI handed me the photos, the receipts, and the videos. There they were, her and him. The so-called work friend who wasn't just a friend at all. He was a gym rat, a self-proclaimed crypto expert who sold fake seminars online. A man who clearly had no boundaries, just like her. It was all there, in black and white, as clear as day. I wasn't shocked. I'd suspected it for so long, but seeing the evidence in front of me felt different. It was final. There was no denying it now. She had betrayed me in the worst way possible, and I had the proof to destroy the life she had built on lies. But I wasn't going to rush. I knew the power of patience. I would wait for the right moment, for the moment when I could strike with precision, without emotion. Silence would be my weapon. I had already made my move in the shadows, and now, I was just waiting for the final piece to fall into place. The clock was ticking, and everything was falling into place. I knew I was close. Soon, she would realize that she wasn't the one in control anymore. And when she did, I would be ready. The courtroom was silent as I sat there, my eyes fixed on the judge, my hands folded in my lap. I'd agreed to the divorce quickly, without hesitation, a move that caught her off guard. She had expected me to fight, to plead, to beg her to stay. But I didn't. Instead, I remained calm, quiet, a calm before the storm. She thought she had all the power, that she held the reins of our future, but I knew better. Her lawyer was still smiling, confident that they were about to win. She was already imagining herself with half of everything, half the house, half the business, half of everything we had built together. But what she didn't know was that she was about to lose it all. Everything she thought was hers would slip away like sand through her fingers. The judge cleared his throat and began reading aloud. I could see her shifting in her seat, trying to maintain her composure, but it was already too late. The words echoed in the courtroom, each one landing like a punch. The business in question is no longer under sole ownership, but held entirely by an irrevocable trust. Her smile faltered, her eyes widening in disbelief. She glanced at her lawyer, who was now scrambling to understand the situation. The reality of what was happening started to sink in. Her world, her plans, were crumbling right in front of her. The judge continued, unfazed, reading the details of our assets. The cars leased, the house technically owned by a holding company, and I was simply paying rent. The bank accounts moved, clean, untraceable. The only liquid assets under his name, $42,000. That is all she is entitled to. The words hit her like a tidal wave. She froze. The smug smile that had been plastered on her face earlier disappeared, replaced by an expression of pure shock and panic. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering frantically, but it was too late. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. She was speechless, paralyzed by the reality that she had lost everything she thought she would take with her. I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. I could feel the shift in the air, the weight of her defeat. She had come into this court with her head held high, thinking she could walk away with half of everything. But now, she was the one walking away with nothing. As the judge continued, I let her absorb the full impact of what was happening. She had been playing a game, but I had played it smarter, quieter, and more carefully. I had won, and she knew it. There was no victory for her here. The reality of her situation was setting in, and it was clear that her triumph had been nothing more than an illusion. I could see her hands trembling as she reached for her purse, her eyes darting nervously between her lawyer and me. But I didn't care. I had done what I set out to do. The moment I had been waiting for had arrived, and it had been worth every second of patience. As the session ended, I stood up slowly, giving her one last glance before I walked out of the courtroom. She didn't follow me, didn't say a word. There was no reason to. She had lost, and I had taken everything from her, not with anger or violence, but with quiet, calculated precision. Outside the courthouse, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. It wasn't satisfaction, it wasn't happiness, it was simply the knowledge that justice had been done. The storm had passed, and in the aftermath, there was nothing but silence. The kind of silence that comes after a battle has been won, and the dust has finally settled. I didn't need to gloat. She had already received her punishment. I stood alone outside the courthouse, the cold air wrapping around me like a cloak. The doors swung open, and there she was walking past me with a face drained of color, her steps hurried and uneven. She didn't look at me. She couldn't. Her pride, the smugness she had carried so easily throughout this entire ordeal, was gone. She was defeated, and she knew it. I didn't bother to look at her for too long. She had already taken her last glance at me inside the courtroom. Instead, I observed her retreating figure, every step heavier than the last. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to do. She had lost, and now she would have to live with it. Let her laugh again. This time in a 2-bedroom rental with credit card debt and a gym rat who thinks Bitcoin is a personality. The words were quiet in my head, but they were final, unspoken justice. There was no need for a scene, no need to gloat. The battle had been fought, and I had won. Her laughter, once so full of arrogance, would fade into the background noise of her new, empty life. The silence of her defeat would speak louder than any words I could say. My victory wasn't in the wealth or the assets. It wasn't in the loss she'd experienced. It was in the fact that I had stayed calm, stayed in control, and executed my plan with precision. She thought she could walk away with everything, but I had silently taken it all from her, without a word, without a fight, just by letting her believe in her illusion. I turned and walked away from the courthouse, the satisfaction of the moment settling in. There was no triumph to announce. There was no need. It was over. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more stories like this. Thank you for watching, and feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below.